We'll get to the Lions because you thought they had a pretty good draft.
I
but
did.
in Tier 2, how many teams you got in Tier 2? 1, 2, 3,
Was it
4,
five,
5,
maybe?
6 teams in
yeah.
Tier 2.
Yep.
And one of these teams is kind of similar to maybe the Eagles. Run-first offense. The Falcons might be the number 1 run-first offense in the NFL this year. And you liked what they did with the draft because hook 'em horns with their first pick, they took Bijan Robinson.
I do. I love Atlanta's draft, and I'm going to explain why. One, I don't think there's one pick made in this draft that affects a team more right away than Bijan Robinson to Atlanta, right? He is going to directly affect win-loss records maybe more than anybody we've seen in the top 10, top 15, anything like that. They're a running football team. They have, other than the Eagles, maybe the best offensive line in football. It's certainly top 5, all right? So now you get that running back. Whoa, I mean, yeah, they're going to be a force. And of course, it's going to change their team and make them more dynamic and explosive. But then to get Matthew Bergeron at the top of the second, who I love. He was our honorable mention tackle. I think they could play him at guard. I really think he's more like Skoronski in that he's going to be a great guard in the NFL. But he can play tackle. Then we got a guy like Zach Harrison in the 3rd round. Zach Harrison was another guy, my honorable mentions. He didn't get a lot of talk in the draft process because of how he was played at Ohio State.
Edge
guy, right? Edge guy that had to do a lot of two-gapping and stuff like that too, right? Wasn't always allowed to just go rush the passer, right? I looked at him and went, damn, he remind me of Carlos Dunlap. So I look at that, what they got going on the defensive side of the ball already. You added Zach Harrison, what that offensive line has. Now they got Matthew Bergeron, and then that running back. And I like Clark Phillips III, the cornerback from Utah, is a little bit of a nickel slot guy. I just thought their top 4 picks are really they're game changers, and I think under the radar are going to change their football team right away in 2023.
And it helps the quarterback because
Exactly.
I don't think we're sold on Desmond Ridder being a franchise guy.
Right. Or certainly not the guy we said, oh, hey, Atlanta's going to drop back 40 times a game and let Desmond Ridder pick you apart, right? This takes that pressure away. It does. And then I think, they're going to get in some 2 tight end sets and, play action pass and bootlegs and all of that. And that run game and how elite they're going to be at that is going to allow him to throw bootlegs and play action to Drake London and Kyle Pitts and everybody off of that. That's just going to make them a handful.
So Pete raises an interesting question here.
Yeah.
You did see some teams do this where they go, oh, this team's got needs. And wait, hold on. They got needs, but this is the part of the team that's actually pretty good. They had a good run game last year, 3rd in rush yards, 4th in yards per carry. And so what do you think about the Falcons beefing that up even more?
We talked about this 2 weeks ago. I talked about this with Florio a little bit of don't be afraid to make your elite part of your team more elite. There's something to that. There really is. And they're doubling down on, they made a lot of adjustments and great signings on defense and free agency. So they improved that part of their roster. And then, I think they looked at it and went, wait, we're this close to being we're going to run the ball. And what are you going to do about it? Like the Titans were, or like Dak Prescott and the Cowboys were with Ezekiel Elliott that first year. Remember? I mean, it was everybody was ready to go, oh my gosh, the Cowboys are going to fall off earth. And I remember at the time I was going, they're going to run the ball and Dak Prescott's going to manage the game. And they became unstoppable. So they're kind of going that way too. They're going, hey, we're going to run it, but good luck stopping it. And that's the way they want to play. And then you're going to get so desperate stopping the run, they're going to go, oh, you're all up here at the line of scrimmage. Oh, sorry, Kyle Pitts is behind you. 60-yard touchdown. Bye-bye. Right? So, I have no problem with that. I think sometimes teams drop the ball by trying to spread the wealth too much. And then I look at their team and go, you don't have one unit on your team that's elite or really good, right? I'm more in favor of this and going, no. We're going to be so great at this that it's going to make you change the way you have to play us. And even that weaker part of our team is now going to be an advantage because this part is so strong that, hey, our defense, we might not be as good, but we're going to be off the field more. We're going to be chewing up clock because we're going to be fresh, and we're going to play a style that'll help the defense out anyways. I kind of like the move. I really do.
It's like one of those situations where it's like, oh, okay, you have a team that's weak defensively in the defensive secondary.
Did you really need a running back with Detroit?
No.
Right.
Well, maybe.
Well, I mean, to a degree. But it wasn't like a desperate, but that was one of your strengths of your team.
But it's like that. I guess the danger, like you're saying, is you have a weakness on your team. You draft a guy, and you're still weak there. It's like it didn't really significantly raise the level of play of that unit.
No, I hear you, and I think what they're telling you is they felt like, hey, we re-signed Lorenzo Carter, we signed Bud Dupree in free agency, we got Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, right? We traded for Jeff Okudah, right? I think I'm missing somebody else there, but either way, they made those moves going, no, our defense is fine. We feel good about our defense.
Yeah.
And that allowed them to free them up to address offense with those first 2 picks.
Falcons had a good draft, making their strengths stronger. The Packers had a good draft in your eyes.
Yes, they did.
And what is Aaron Rodgers feeling right now? Because 3 of the top 4 picks are offensive weapons. A couple tight ends, Luke Musgrave from Oregon State, Tucker Kraft from South Dakota State, Jaden Reed, the wide receiver out of Michigan State. We're taken in the 2nd and 3rd rounds, but their number 1 overall pick, edge Lucas Van Ness from Iowa, with his 3 girlfriends there sitting on the couch. I don't know if you saw that
I did.
picture out there. 2 of them were his sister,
right,
so it wasn't
right.
quite true. Sorry about that. Sorry to keep that rumor going, but I cleaned it up. I set the record straight. The Packers, you like their draft?
I did like their draft. I did. First off, I'm a Lucas Van Ness fan. I am. Defensive end, defensive tackle. He can play really just about anything on the defensive line other than nose tackle. So that's the great thing about him. So, yeah, I love that. And we've talked about, them in years past, why they can't beat the 49ers. If they want to beat a team like the Eagles, they got to get bigger and stouter up front, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The 2 tight ends they got, there was a desperate need for them, and they got 2 guys that are freaky. I mean, Musgrave's an incredible athlete at 6'6". So is Tucker Kraft. So they got 2 guys there that can, all right, you're worried about Dobbs and Christian Watson on the outside, and now you got those 2 being able to work downfield, let alone, like we always talk about, the 2 tight end sets and have to worry about the power running game. Jaden Reed, he's another guy we brought up during the honorable mention part of our wide receiver. He's one of those slot receivers that I look at like, yeah, don't be shocked in 2 years from now. We're like, hey, look, Jaden Reed's got 89 catches here in week 17 and 1,000 yards, right? I mean, he's got some Amon-Ra St. Brown to him, right? If you want a comparison a little bit there. So I love that. Colby Wooden in the 4th round is almost a lot like a Van Ness. Outside linebacker, D tackle, DN, can play a little bit of everything that way. And then they got my man Carl Brooks in the 6th round, my 300-pound outside linebacker.
Edge
right?
outside linebacker out of Bowling Green.
Right. So he's again, I love his skill level. He needs some work on his anchor as far as playing D tackle like we talked about. But, yeah, all in all, I was a very big fan of what the Packers did in the draft.
Bodelicious D says, thanks for acknowledging what Florio never would. The Packers, at least to this point, had a good draft.
They did. They really did. I was impressed with their draft, and I think, got some guys that I think on the defensive side were needed and fit their culture. And then the tight end position, look, their offense, their O-line's pretty good. They got a lot of things there. But those guys that could work the middle of the field, the Randall Cobb, the Alan Lazard, right?
Yeah.
The damn tight end they lost to Chicago in free agency. Tunyon, right, Robert Tunyon. Now they have replacements for that, and I like those moves.
Now, for the record, Florio did say last week he likes the Packers' odds of making the Super Bowl more than the Jets.
I did. He did say that, which I think he's a little crazy.
That is a little crazy.
Yeah, but okay.
Well, I guess if you like the odds, though, that means you might like the value more.
Well, I think
right?
that's what it is more than that.
Coming
I think
out
he's
of the
looking
NFC?
at the AFC is exactly. I think he's like the AFC is crazy deep,
true.
and the NFC again. I think we're all looking at it going. There's 2 teams, and then who's going to be that next tier of teams that come up and challenge them?
I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
Can you get on board with this? Maddie Carver saying about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Addressed all top needs, did so with great value at the picks taken. Omar Khan has arrived. You yourself said if anyone was going to be Gronk from this class, it's Darnell Washington. Elusive Pat F. with the 6th O-line. Najee and Pickett are happy men. So beefing up the offensive line.
That's right.
Adding some weapons in Washington. Did you like this draft for the Steelers as much as Maddie Carver?
I did, Maddie Carver. I'm with you right there. And again, this is where hey, Joey Porter's not my favorite corner in this draft. But I'm not going to be mad at them taking him. A physical, tough, culture-setting DB in Pittsburgh, which they like. I can get behind that. So that's where I don't want people to think I'm so obtuse or closed-minded. And I'll go, yeah, he's not one of my favorite corners. But they'll have a plan for him. He fits the attitude of their football team. I love Broderick Jones. Like we talked about on the night of the draft. They need offensive line help. But it's been 3 years we've been working together, and we've talked about their O-line not being good enough in all 3 years. Keanu Benton, one of our honorable mention D linemen, in that process out of Wisconsin to get him in the second round. I thought that was amazing as well. I couldn't believe he was still on the board. I couldn't believe the Patriots took Keanu White over Keanu Benton.
Yeah. Second round.
Second round. Did I say second? It was their third pick, second round.
Yeah. I think you said sixth round.
Oh, did I? I didn't mean to. But either way, I'm a big, and Keanu Benton. And here's one of the reasons I like what they did. And I saw one of his picks. He goes, I talked to Mike Tomlin. He said, Mike Tomlin wants goons here in Chicago. You know me. I like goons too.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. Okay, Broderick Jones, big goon left tackle, going to mess you up. Joey Porter Jr., come over the middle. Goon, going to mess you up. Keanu Benton, try to run over by me. Not moving me. Goon, mess you up. Then you add on Gronk, Darnell Washington.
Yeah.
Oh, double teaming with Broderick Jones. We're going to mess you up on the end of the line of scrimmage. And then Nick Herbig, a good little player there to add to the mix as far as, linebacker edge guy there. So, yes, I like the players, and even though I don't like Joey Porter Jr. as much as everybody else, I understand them liking him, and he fits for them, and that's where I'm going to give them a lot of love.
This could be a much improved team
over
what they were last year
right.
because they made some moves in the offseason, beefing up the offensive line, right?
Definitely.
In the free agency. So, yes, watch out for the Steelers.
We
Mike
know.
Tomlin.
They're going to compete. We know the Steelers. They got some weapons at receiver. The quarterback's going in the right direction. Their problem is like what we talk about with everybody. They're in the AFC North and the AFC in general, which is tough.
Hawk Stroliger is chiming in.
Here he comes, Hawk Stroliger.
Who do you think his favorite team of the draft was? It was the Seahawks. He goes, got the best corner in the draft, best to some wide receiver in the draft, fourth good edge rusher, and a solid power speed running back too. Best wide receiver room and secondary in the league now. Also great value in the trenches in day 3 and a quality third down running back in the 7th. Also got a 24th third from the Broncos. So Hawk Stroliger is loving everything they did. Yeah, Devin Witherspoon, first pick, Illinois. Your man crush. And then you didn't have as big of a man crush on Jackson Smith and Jigba, but they beefed up their wide receiver room with their second pick in the first round, that wide receiver out of Ohio State.
Definitely. I mean, I'm not going to be mad at it again either. I mean, he was my number 2 receiver.
Right.
Not necessarily like we always talk about my cup of tea is a true slot guy, but if a true slot guy could go anywhere, okay, this is one of them. I'd go, yes, this makes sense. Lockett on the outside, Metcalf on the outside. Now you get Njigba work in the middle. It's perfect. It's what we talked about when we broke him down, right? He needs that space. He's great at running routes and reading the coverage that way. He's not necessarily going to beat people outside on a consistent basis all day long. So he's perfect. And then you think about them now, and you go, damn, those 3 receivers, Noah Fant at tight end, Kenneth Walker at running back. They got 2 young tackles that are awesome. I loved all of that. So the first 2 picks killed it. Devin Witherspoon, are you come on? With Diggs and Jamal Adams and our Tyreek Woolen and Michael Jackson, I just go I don't know. It's a bunch of psychos. I like psychos. You know that. It's like Illinois. They're replicating it there.
Right.
Quandre Diggs, he doesn't even like me. He's got mad at me on Twitter for saying something about Jalen. I still got respect for him. He's a psycho in a good way, right? I don't know why he doesn't like me. He's mad. I said Jalen Ramsey got traded for a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah,
whatever.
he went off on you pretty
hard.
hard.
He did went off me. It was not called for.
You wrote back to him. Did he ever write back after that or no?
No, of course not.
Okay.
No, it was a sensible conversation. Sensible people aren't capable of, or insensible people aren't capable of having sensible conversations. He blamed me because his brother didn't win the national championship when I was quarterback. All my 1 year of being a starter, I didn't. It was all or nothing right there.
Yeah.
I'm just a little mad at him. He said on social media because he didn't win the national championship when my brother was there. All 1 year as a starter, I didn't do it. Damn, I suck.
Yeah. You had one shot.
Right, one shot. Damn, I know. Top 5 wasn't good enough.
Pete, set up the interview with Diggs. We want to get this.
I would like that
out
too.
And figure out what's going on.
But to continue on the rest of the Seahawks,
okay, sorry.
You get Zach Charbonnet, right?
Yeah. What'd you think of that? I mean, that was an area of strength.
Yeah. I mean, but I think they look at it and go, let's not kill Kenneth Walker, right? Let's save him for a few years because he's special. And then this guy's got a little bit of that smash mouth. Oh, it's the 4th quarter, and now we got to, man, we've been tackling Kenneth Walker, and now we got to tackle him too. He's great there. Anthony Bradford was one of the better interior guards in the draft.
Out of LSU.
Yeah, to LSU. And this first second round pick, Derek Hall, right?
Edge out of Auburn.
He was someone we brought up during our Edge Day. Like, again, he was one of those guys where I said, listen, I like the way he rushes the passer better than Will Anderson. There's more, to me, high-end potential in Derek Hall being a superstar pass rusher than Will Anderson. So, yeah, for the most part, as you could tell, I really love the Seahawks draft.
Seahawks are they're not rebuilding. They were, what was the record last year?
In the playoffs, that's all that matters.
That's right.
Winning against the 49ers at halftime in the wild card game.
How did that
What'd they end up?
slip my mind?
9-8 or 10-7? I can't remember. It's right there. Here, I got it for you. They were 9-8.
And they beefed up with a lot of players. Now,
yeah.
The next team we're talking about, I feel like are going through a bit of a rebuild at this point. The Tennessee Titans didn't have a whole lot of draft picks, but the first two they used on an offensive lineman, Peter Skoronski, in some people's eyes, out of Northwestern, the top offensive lineman in the draft.
Sure.
And then in the second round, Will Levis out of Kentucky. Let's start there.
Yeah. I mean, got their quarterback of their future.
Do they, though?
I think they do, or at least they view it.
Well, yeah.
I think that's how they look at it. We'll see. I think this is, again, another one of those where we just talked about Jalen Carter and perfect fit. I go, man, this is a perfect spot for Will Levis. He's not going to play. He's not going to beat out Ryan Tannehill. And the things we talked about, him being inconsistent and getting better with, he's going to have a full year of working on it and getting to watch Ryan Tannehill do it.
Yeah.
So
Tannehill will not teach him, though. He's made that clear.
Well, it's not his job.
He's not a mentor.
It's not like he's not going to teach you, but it's not his. He's not going to be like, hey, Will, come in here. Let me hold your hand and we'll go over the plays and watch film together. Right? No, that's not going. That's all he was saying.
Yeah.
If Will has a question, he's going to help him. He's not. He's going to be there for him. Just same thing with like what Malik said. It was overblown that he said that. He was just trying to make sure that everybody knew it wasn't his job to develop the guy. He's got to worry about this thing called being a starting quarterback. He's got to worry about. So, Skoronski, we know they want to run the football. Their O-line slowly dissipating over the last 2 years, whether it's free agency, age, whatever. So they needed help here. Skoronski is the most for sure offensive lineman in the draft. The tackle guard, I think could be a great guard. You get Will Levis, who, like I said, could be a lot like Ryan Tannehill, except he's got a bigger arm, right? But it'll still allow them to play the same style of football. Tyjae Spears, the running back from Tulane, really damn good. Definitely a guy I thought about putting in my top 5, right? He just missed out. And then they got one of my favorite tight ends in Weil. In the 5th round.
Yeah, Josh Weil out of Cincinnati.
Exactly. So I just, I thought all in all, it was a good draft for now, the future, but I really like those top 4 players right there.
So where does that put them in the division? Because not the toughest division, AFC South. Jacksonville should be the favorite.
Definitely the favorite.
I declared this, remember, right at the end of the season. I think Jacksonville is going to be one of the top favorites to win a division this year, and that might be the case.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Tennessee was 7-10 last year. I feel like they still could take a step back from that. I don't know.
I do too. I'm never going to put anything out of them. I do think their defense is still going to be a force here. I do. The way they play, Vrabel, I think they'll. Again, I don't look at them. I think Jacksonville, to your point, is clearly the best team in the division. Do I think Tennessee can win the Super Bowl? Absolutely not. But do I think Tennessee could get to a wild card game? Yes, I do. Again, I think when you couple, hey, Harold Landry will be back. Of course, they got Jeffrey Simmons on the inside. They got Azeez El-Shaair at tight end. I think they got some, Christian Fulton and Caleb McCary are both young corners who are very good out in the edge. So I still think they're going to be a pain in the ass, I guess is what I'm saying in the AFC. But, yeah, I don't think they're a real Super Bowl contender.
The Jaguars are -160 to win the AFC South. That is the same odds of the Kansas City Chiefs to win the AFC West.
Wow.
-160.
Wow.
So I think those could even grow for Jacksonville. We will see.
Well, the AFC West is tough.
You know who's favored to win the NFC North?
Oh, well, I have a feeling since you're a fan of that team, that's probably why you're bringing it up.
Me and Notishi, who writes into you. I loved the Lions draft. It looked odd early on, but they got 4 immediate starters. They went against the grain, filled key spots on the roster. Hendon Hooker was just icing on the cake, the quarterback out of Tennessee. It tells you that they think that they are close to having a team that could go far. And I think that is exactly the case for the Lions and spending some money in free agency. We saw that graphic on teams that spend a lot of money in free agency often make that jump into the playoffs. I think it's because these teams know they're on the cusp.
That's right.
And I think the Lions know that too.
I think
and
that's
so
fair.
I'm ready to gush. I was a little nervous with Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back out of Alabama, not because of the player, because maybe he went a little high.
Yeah, right.
I was more nervous when they took Jack Campbell, the linebacker out of Iowa, at 18. So I was a little unsettled, but saying nothing bad against those players because I think those guys will help the Lions significantly.
Definitely. That's where, again, I understand we all want the best value in the draft, and we don't want to draft any guy except for the pick right before he's going to come off the board. That's the best value because we know that team's going to pick him. So if you got him to pick before, you got the best value. Like, we all get a little obsessed with that shit. We all do. Listen, did they overdraft Jahmyr Gibbs? Okay, sure. But, like, so? What did they didn't want to risk it. They didn't want to risk falling down to what? I don't know. We're here. We could take a Jahmyr Gibbs at 12, or do we want to trade down? And now we're down at, the mid-20s or low 20s, and now somebody else takes them that we didn't think. I mean, they didn't want to risk that. Yeah. They had their eye on a guy that they knew at a position they needed that could change their football team.
There were 2 running backs in this draft.
Exactly.
Robinson was already off the board, and it was Gibbs that was left that was in that same tier.
Right. I'm not mad at them for taking Jahmyr Gibbs 10 spots too early. Right. I mean, that's sort of like, again, they were being viewed on that where I want to go, if they took him at, 22 that night, we would all be like, what a pick. Oh, my gosh, right? Yeah. Jack Campbell? Yeah, that's too high for me, too. Right, I get it. I mean, he's a second rounder to me, a top of the second round. But, again, I think they looked at it and go, all right, so what? We trade down to the late first, early second? And what? Then we don't get the guy we really wanted? See, I think they're a team that a little bit plays on the, wait, here's our need, and then they have a very small list of the guys they want that they feel like fit their mold, and we bite kneecaps, and they'll play and do whatever I want. So they had their eyes on these guys, and they put a premium on that. So I have no problem with that when you break it down like that. Wait, we need a starting middle linebacker. Our favorite one was Jack Campbell. So who the cares if they took him 20 spots too early? If he's your favorite one and you know he's going to start and you feel that confident that he's the guy out of everybody else, I don't get mad at that. I don't know. And same thing with the Jahmyr Gibbs conversation. And then you get into the rest of the draft. Okay, so they maybe overdrafted those 2 guys, right? Sam Laporta to start the second round?
Yeah, tight end out of Iowa.
There's a reason you heard about the Raiders and other teams talking about trading up at the end of first round. They were all Sam Laporta and Michael Mayer. Everybody was going, oh shit, they're gonna the top tier tight ends are gonna be off the board. We got to get one of these guys, right? So they get him, right? Now we know why they traded T.J. Hawkinson, right? They were going, oh, that's a good tight end class. We'll get somebody, and we're pretty good there anyways. Then we know they need secondary help. And you get the free safety, maybe one of the best nickels, pure nickels in the draft, and Brian Branch. And then the pick after that, you get the quarterback of the future. Like, yes, I'm a big fan of what the Detroit Lions did.
Yeah, what do you think of Hendon Hooker? Coming back from injury, knee injury, older prospect.
Yeah.
What is he going to be? 25?
26, maybe. I think.
26 already.
I think he's getting close to 26. Maybe I'm
wrong.
Is
that true?
I think
Sam
so.
Darnold's 25. That's the craziest thing that keeps
Lamar
popping
Jackson's
up. I'm
like younger than him, I think. Or it's right around there.
Wherever Sam Darnold had been drafted in this class.
Yeah.
What do you think about Hendon Hooker to the Lions?
He's perfect fit, like, for you guys. I think that's like, again, pocket passing, oh, you want to run the ball? You want me to stand in the pocket and make aggressive throws down the field and people around me and I'll be on point still? Damn, that's Hendon Hooker's game. I think it fits perfectly, right? So that's where I love it. Let alone I think he's got the grit and toughness they like. That's why they liked him. It shows on film. He's fearless that way. And he's a high-level thrower of the football. So, again, it doesn't make me happy to say, but yeah, I think that the writing's on the wall for Jared Goff. He's going to have to do something extraordinary this year to keep his job there, I think. And, you know, I was never sold that Jared Goff was the future. You know that.
Hendon Hooker turned 25 in January.
Oh, okay, so it was just
which
turned
means
25.
he'll be 26 when he's starting his first playoff game for the Lions coming up next year. So that puts a bow on Tier 2.
Yeah,
that's your Tier 2 good drafts.
Yep.
I was hoping my Lions could maybe get there in Tier 1, but close. But
well, they're just like
no
was
cigar.
one team that stood out so much that I gave them their
100%.
own tier.
I get that.